Cool. So, welcome everybody. Today we are gathered here to talk about an interesting story. It's a personal story of development and about the love for video games and retro kind of games and pixel art. So the title is From Noob to Cool, Self-Made Game Developer. So let's get started. So when you downplay the sound of your own limitations with subversive honesty, it restores the trust and it clears the path forward. If you find yourself in a moment where really you said to yourself like, hey, I want to do these things, but I'm not good at this stuff. Sometimes coming out and sharing your story, talking to people, being honest about your difficulties, your deficiencies is a way also to make peace with yourself, and also to get feedback from amazing people. So yeah, the first step I guess is moving forward, open up. So chapter 1, what am I going to talk about today? A little bit, my story is composed about who am I, where all this started, this video game thing, how did I start from scratch, what was my experience in my first game jam, and the reality check that came after that game jam, and the effort that has taken so far to develop a little bit some skills there to keep moving forward. So let's get started. So who am I? I'm a software engineer. I am sometimes kind of a science geek. I like to work in my free time to become a game developer. I feel really identified with minimalism, so I always like to express things in their minimum. Somehow I became a self-made pixel artist just because I love retro games, and because I'm very persistent. And yeah, sorry about the last part, but I'm an arcade game enthusiast. I believe that if you're solo and you're developing some skills, making simple games is the way to start. I mean, if you start with a really complex 3D game, advanced game, probably you will spend years trying to develop some basics. Or at least that's how I felt. Where are my areas of expertise are ranging from Java to C#, Python. I used to work as an Android mobile developer, not anymore. I'm a game developer wannabe. Yeah, I hope that sometimes I get good enough so I can I develop awesome stuff. And I'm a game hackathon average person, so sometimes I just like to participate in hackathons and yeah, and just in case if I didn't mention before, I left this as a note for myself. My name is John Avila, in case I didn't say it before. So, where it all started? It was the year 2014, then I was, kind of a student here at Tartu University. I was really not in a good mood anymore. It was winter time, and I really wanted to work in something that made myself happier, or at least that it was more exciting to work with. Being far from home, dealing with winter and all this stuff, and not being for Christmas and all these things. I needed something to spark me up, and I kind of went back to where it all started. But I also decided that I wanted to make a video game. But by doing a video game, I wanted to communicate with people. I wanted to put ideas out there, because I have some stuff in my head all the time, imagination, I don't know, images, whatever. But the problem is that at that time, what did John knew about game development? I felt identified with Jon Snow in many ways, probably because at that time it was a famous joke on me, either in Colombia and here, everybody called me Jon Snow for some reason. Because every time I had a lecture and I asked something, it's like, you know nothing, John, why? So it was kind of an inside joke, but I decided to use that in my favor. And the problem is that I am the eternal noob. I'm always, laid back, I always I am the last one to finish. I'm always struggling to learn things as everybody traditionally does. So yeah, I know nothing. At least in that time, I know less than I know now. So it was even worse. So, and the problem is that at that time, I was an average programmer. I'm still am. Back then I had no artistic background. I suck at music, like big time. And I think I have played too many games in my life and not actually developed them. So that was kind of a problem. But what I did have back then, and I still have, is imagination. Imagination is the driving force behind everything that I attempt. And I have this thing that I would like to go against all odds. Like people always tell me, "Hey, John, maybe engineering is not for you. You're struggling too much." But if I listen to those voices, I wouldn't even be here. I don't know where would I be, but definitely this is the place that I would like to be. I will not change it for anything. Other thing is like I have passion for these things. I have passion for video games, for storytelling, for expressing, for programming, and I am a very curious person. I'm always asking too many questions, and that's also kind of a problem because most of the people I have met here, they're really experts in their area. But I annoy them like a lot. I'm always asking why this and why that, and I have seen some of you sometimes get a little bit stressed by my questions. But not only here, also in the university. So at some point, I think the best way is to get control of these things. If you don't know a lot about something, better start by yourself with the basics and keep working yourself in your free time or whatever. But just find the time for it. So this is all the very beginning. So I was thinking like, okay, who am I? Like, who am I as a developer? I know that I'm not an artist, and I thought of myself that as a man of a particular set of skills. But in reality, no. I am a man with a very particular set of issues. I have a really bad lack of focus. Like I am all over the place. Like my level of attention is like, oh, look, there is a squirrel outside. And then I forget what I was doing. And that's a really bad thing. I'm a slow learner. It really takes time for me to learn things because I always try to put the angles and try to think about everything. And I overthink too much. And that's a bad thing, but not much. I haven't changed that much ever since. But so I decided to went back in time, to times where everything was more simple. Like right now we have access to so many information, so much technology. People use computers just sometimes for Facebook, and these are like 2,000 euro computers, and I mean the amount of things that modern computers can do today is like outrageous compared to 33 years ago. Back in the day, in the 80s, my father got this computer. In 1988, he got this computer. Actually, well, the model was already discontinued, but it was Columbia. I mean, it's like it was the 80s, so we didn't have internet. And I remember, I'm feeling old. Yes, this was a long time ago. So I remember like the first time I sat in a computer, and before the console, the first thing that I noticed is that there are video games there. And comparing the Atari console that we had to the computer, the computer immediately looked for me like it's something that it was much more exciting to use than just a closed console. So that was an inspiring thought. Like people back then did a lot of things with so little, and that if somebody like me that gets so lost and has a lack of focus should focus on something minimal, focus on small things. So learning about the story, the hardware limitations, the color limitations, distribution limitations. Like back then, you cannot get your game on Steam. Right? Basically, you need to copy in a mass chain line of production all your games in something like this, for example. I'm glad to say that I started in the middle. If I started before that, I would really feel really old, and I shouldn't be alive or something. But I remember that the first game that I played was using that same orange floppy disk, and it was an amazing game, and it brings a lot of happy memories. It was called LA Cat. Yeah, and like I said before, in the 80s, most of the amazing works were done in that. The first games that we saw were done in the 80s, and they were amazing. So this was the Alley Cat, the game. What I learning and looking about this game, I remember that I had my friend from Ukraine. She joined me one night, and we were just drinking beer and looking at very old games. And this was I didn't thought that this was possible at that moment. But there is a page where all these games are accessible via JavaScript, so you can play them. What I love about this game is like it has everything that you might possibly need in a game. I mean, the year, like I said, it's 1984. So this game was released in 1984. So it was on production the year before that, or I don't know how much time it passed. But it holds the essence of every game. It has music, it has design, it has a simple game mechanics, and the most important thing for me is that it's really fun. Even though if I play this game today, I still kind of have fun. You know, it's a simple game. It's an arcade game. Technology back then it was very limited, so there was not really an opportunity to get a storyline or something really complicated. You can get the level of difficulty, so I'll be a kitten for now. And okay, I already got busted, so the game already has a level of difficulty there, and so basic mechanics, you know, you can make. So I was wondering to myself, like, damn it, this is just a few sprites, a few colors, why I can't do something like this? So then I just pick a couple examples. It's not like I'm going to talk about the whole history of video games, so don't worry. This was another game that I also played during that time, Digger. Like, you know, it also has like a very catchy tune. Like this tune stayed for me forever. Like I still sometimes remember this. It's very cool, and also what I started to see is like the graphics are not hard to achieve. I mean, for a person like me, and I'm starting to think now that even the music is not something that can be out of my reach. So, for example. Okay, it seems that the game is not story. But you see, like the game has, like, you know, has design, has. I mean, you can sit and start this game, and you can be playing this game in no time. Like it was really that easy to understand what was going on for a 6-year-old, and I believe that I would like to do games like that. But in order to get to this point, yeah, there is a lot of ground that I had to cover. So you just move around, collect diamonds and stuff, and there is already some sort of primitive AI. So the game is an example of most of the basic things that you might need on a video game. A catchy tune, that's important, and yeah, and you die. So it even has like this sort of dark humorish kind of thing, and for people from 33 years ago, that's kind of awesome. Other example, I think everybody is kind of familiar with this game, I guess, and it's also like an amazing example of how people back then combined, you know, the music that they have, the colors that they have, and they were able to tell a story. in a very simple way. These days we think this game is kind of lame. Some people, new generations, they think, but this was the start. This is how the basics are still like working out together. You see, for example, my favorite pick was like Maniac Mansion. At least this game has everything in terms of an adventure, of a storyline, and being interactive. It has sound, so it has humor. So I basically, when I was growing up, it was always puzzling me, like, hey, who are these people working in there? But like I said before, why is this important now? Yes, I mean, the basics are still the same. The hardware was limited, so they were able to optimize their tools to get the most out of them. Back then, even software engineering was not even a real career. No? There was only computer scientists. So most of these guys that attempted doing video games were computer scientists that somehow were artists, musicians, storytellers, game designers. They knew their limitations. And that's when the whole story starts making sense to me. So from my pick, it was like the game developing team of Maniac Mansion. You can see Carl May, Ron Gilbert, David Fox, and Gary Winnick. They created Maniac Mansion. It's one of the most beloved click adventures ever made, and since they made a game that felt more like a piece of art, and made such a good experience, such an amazing game, it became popular through the times. You know, it's like after Lucasfilm ended, after Gary Winnick and Ron Gilbert stopped doing games or dedicated to some other projects, everybody was thinking about when is the next venture coming. So luckily for us, a couple of years ago, they decided that they were going to do another kind of click adventure kind of game, and they made a Kickstarter campaign, and they pledged like $300,000, and they get almost double that sum. People still love this game. They love this kind of atmosphere. So that's the proof that if you make something good, if you make something that is like a piece of art, people will remember it, and it might still even be good for newer generations in times to come. So that was like my inspiration. Also, I was looking at the process because, as an engineer, also I was thinking about the process. If I suck at graphics, at music, and I can do a little bit of coding, then I need to understand what process can I create to start developing something. So this is like a great example. Like how much the time they spent on everything. Like most of the time went on design, art, and coding. Probably in my case, music and sound effects will take a little bit more than that. But I'm still in this part, design, art, and coding. I'm trying to master my process here, because this is the area that I need to cover first. So 2014, it was like a really, really confusing year for me. But I decided that I need to start somewhere, and I heard about this game jam happening in Tallinn. And when I got there, I had this basic bullet points. Like, I knew games. Okay, I have played a lot of games. I have a retro feeling, alive and well. I mean, I still love retro games, arcade games. But I had no idea about game design. I could imagine a game idea, but I could not dimension how complex will it be to achieve, and that was a real big problem, because sometimes our imagination outsmarts our skills, and that happens very, very often, not only in game development, also in software development, and I have felt that really many times. I just have an abstract story about what I did before that, and I freaked out people with cellular automatas. So I went to my first game jam, not looking for love, but looking for people to work with. And I think if you have really no idea about game development, going to a game jam might be like looking for love in several wrong places, because you won't be able to put any value quick enough, and that might cause a lot of problems and frustrations, I guess. So it's better to come prepared. So, but still, I don't know. I was brave enough, and I still went there. At first, I was sitting there, and then I was a little bit shy. I didn't want, because I was not sure. I backed down from pitching the idea, but suddenly the organizer said, "Is there anyone else that wants to pitch?" And something pushed me out of it, and I just went for it. I guess that even though it's not advisable to go without knowing anything, you still need some sort of, you have to be decisive and don't care about the outcome. Just do it. You need to start somewhere. So don't be afraid about what other people think. The most impressive thing is that even though I know that I knew nothing, like Jon Snow, I still felt very welcome and encouraged by the community there, as I do here. Like, you guys are amazing. You're very encouraging people, or at least I felt that. I don't know, like, I'm trying. I advanced a little bit, and you guys, hey, put a like or give some feedback, or you're always open to listen. And encouragement and feedback is very important for people that are developing. Also, one important thing about the Game Jam is that I did my first networking there. So when I was trying to pitch my idea, I had a very complex idea of about how to engineer cellular automata into video games. This was the kind of things that I was trying to show them, but nobody liked this. Some say that it was way too nerdy, or they can't see a game possibly made out of this. For me, I have to be honest, I still don't know how to engineer this, but as an artifact for game mechanics, I still find it awesome. But I still don't know what to do. I mean, it looks like a biological entity. It's like, if circuits behave like biological bacteria or something, maybe it can be a reactive armor. But yeah, right up to this moment, I can't see a game. So maybe it's too complex, and I just needed to get a little bit more simpler. So yeah, you can guess where I am. You can find me where I am, the guy that has no stickers. Yep, that's me. So the amazing thing is, like, even though I was like, I was just, okay, I want this to be over and go back to Tartu, and I don't know what I'm doing here. Then suddenly one guy came, dude, you're crazy, join my team. Then I say, no, I'm not good at this anymore. And then one Finnish guy came to me, is this where the insane people are gathering? And then suddenly, for some accident of history, I got a team. And this guy told me, your idea is too complex, but try to apply whatever you know into my game idea. And I'm still friends with these two guys even today. So I don't know, sometimes being brave is a good thing. You don't know what's going to happen. So being in the Game Jam was an opportunity to find people with similar mindset, make new friends, and have the experience of watching how other people do video games, and it was amazing. But still, up to that point, it's like, knowing games does not make you a game developer. That's what I realized after that Game Jam. It was like 48 hours of hell. But I'd rather push myself and stress myself doing video games than doing my thesis. That was more rewarding experience, I guess. Not that I can say that now, because I know how much benefits it takes if you finish your thesis. And that's another story. Game development is a set of disciplines. No, it's like it involves art, sound, it involves programming, management. So it's a really broad spectrum. No, changing framework and tools during development, and especially during game jams, is a really, really bad idea. I would not advise you to, let's go from 2D to 3D just because reasons. Now, that's not cool. Too much experimenting is not good during game jams. And I'm using the game jam as a time constraint, because if people can make games in 48 hours, then you can basically do a game every 5 days or something like that, if you will put your mind to it. Just because you need to practice enough in order to get your skills to a point where you can just participate in bigger projects. Knowing your limitations is a very important thing. Being honest with yourself, like, you really can't do this. You need to seek for help or work and try again later or whatever. And all important thing is to work with what you know. No, like if you already know Aseprite or you already know Photoshop, keep working with that. If you're joining a project or if you're joining a game jam, and always be open to learn new skills. So the effort is that phase when I decided to, hey, I'm gonna start drawing, like, you know, F this, I'm gonna draw something, and this was the first thing I drew, and it was not really like, it's not like important in that sense. It's not, doesn't look good. It looks flat, has an inconsistent style. The colors that I chose were horrible. Everything looks too saturated. But these are terms that back then I didn't even understand it or dominate it at all. Not that I dominate this at the moment, but time will judge. So I had an idea. I always been fascinated by aliens and UFOs and stuff like that. So, but it's a starting point, and I chose to save that image as a starting point because that was the point where all this journey started. So I kept working. I tried to learn something new every day. I started small. I read articles. I was trying to be active. I joined this game development course that some of the members from this community also was giving back then. I did kind of follow some tutorials in Unity. I wanted to make a TIE fighter kind of game, but then they grilled me with all the copyright things, so I decided, oh, let's use my cellular automata there. So the game really wasn't that cool. I mean, it was just a sample that you can do in any tutorial. So, but it felt like, okay, this is kind of a video game, no? But I was learning kind of to make plans, change things, assess how it looks, get some feedback. But still, I was still doing things in 3D. I still didn't have enough control of my idea, of the things that I want to tell. I didn't know how to model in 3D, so I can only make triangles with funny graphics there. So it was still difficult. So I kept finishing small tasks. Be okay. Don't be worried if you're not learning fast enough. You just have to know that if you learn something new today, that's already good. It's okay if the game, for example, is kind of crap at the moment. If you don't like the outcome, or people don't like it, be sure to document this process, because when you look back, it will be really rewarding to see that you have been moving forward and not backwards. And this is more like a motivational quote for me, that it's better to fail, but fail forward is like, it's an important thing. You're moving a little bit now, especially if you're kind of distracting and out of focus like me, then it's important at least to feel that you are advancing, that you are learning something. So I started from paper. I remember that I decided to go to bars and just take a piece of paper, visit museums, visit galleries, and took a sketchbook and started making cartoons. That was the only thing I could basically do. So I practiced, but the most important thing, I had fun trying to do these things. And I drew some people out there in the creatures of Tartu, is that what I call it. It's a full sketchbook full of these weird cartoons, and I just sat in the bars staring at people for a moment, for just 10 or 15 seconds, and then I just drew whatever I had in my mind. But sometimes I always started thinking about what these people were thinking. And so these weird creatures came out there. Sometimes there was a dog, or sometimes there is a small devil around here. I don't know. This is a fork. I think I was drunk when I was drawing this. I don't know. So there is a lot of things that it's just to spark the creative process. So I kept trying to get the basics. I tried from oil painting to normal colors to ink and stuff like that. It looked like crap, but I know that I was trying to understand how can I express myself with colors. How can I tell my own story with colors? Because that was part of the development process for the video games. And amazingly, the first I at some point, like a year later, I redid the first thing that I made, and I started realizing that I started to move from that to the flat perception of the world, and I started to see some depth. So finally, I was starting to get the idea a little bit of colors and light, and you know, I'm starting to create the stories that I had in my head. They're starting to play out in graphics. I'm starting here to communicate with people. At least this may be a little bit kind of childish sprites compared to the things that I have seen you guys can do. But for me, it's like it was like the beginning. So I try to apply things that I understand from programming, like refactoring, you know, redo the previous assets, trying to improve them, the same way I did with code. And yeah, years later, there is like this effort start to pay off. Like things are getting more complicated. The understanding of symmetry of human faces is starting to evolve, but it all takes time to happen. Practicing every day a little bit pays off. You don't have to be, you know, working on it like 3 months and just, you know, bleed your eyes off. And if you do a little bit of work, of good work every day, 20 minutes, 30 minutes every day or something, you will get places. And if you were as bad, I mean, I felt like I was so bad a couple of years ago. I cannot even imagine I could achieve this. Like I said, I never went to art school, and my education in high school was terrible. So the thing is, like, silly ideas are okay. You know, having fun is a must. You know, like if you have a wild idea a little bit, just go for it. Just draw it. Just make it happen. Do small animations, because when you're doing this, you're creating the skills to actually develop and put a story out there really fast. And this is something that you can use in game jams. If you want to make prototypes, game concepts. Sometimes I realize that all these animations that I do are the mocks of the games I might never gonna make, but I still have a lot of fun drawing this. Even though there is still no code involved in this part of the effort, I still have a lot of fun. This is about, well, in this case, this is with an adventure game studio. What I like about that program is like you just develop sprites and create the story, and basically the program handles all the programming things, so it's kind of cool. But yeah, and it's very cool to be here because I was watching the stream of the previous talk. They were talking about visual programming, and that really struck a chord with me, because yeah, doing animations it's an important thing. But when you're doing also video games, you can really not possibly animate everything, especially when it comes to particle effects, and you still need to keep the style consistent. Then you need to some coding comes a little bit handy in that sense. So I started, for example, with JavaScript, and the thing that I did is, like, since I have this minimalist approach, I wanted to make animations and visual effects with only 140 charts. So the least amount of code, and then I say to myself, hey, I always wanted to do something with celestial mechanics, and if I do it like previously, I will end up with 1,000 lines of code in Java. Java is a very depressing language. So JavaScript with 140 charts and in the right environment, and I can do this kind of animations. So for example, I went into the idea of how celestial mechanics works. So I used this parametric equation, and then I just move all the coordinates in time to simulate how an expanding universe looks like. And it still is like, well, this is not 140 charts, this is like 250. But still, you can just take your sprites and give them an extra life. You know, you can, because when you're animating and doing this visual programming thing and combining with your pixel art and your sprites, you have to keep the style consistent. Because I have seen that people make games and then they use some asset, some particle asset, but the style is completely different, and that already makes the game not feel that like, I don't know. For me, it's more like an execution, like a piece of art. So this is something that I achieve, and it's really good because JavaScript is a great language, and we can learn a lot from it. So for example, this is something that I did. This is an example of the code. Basically, it's like a dynamical system, but for some reason, I'm not using cellular automata. I choose something different. I just was like, fooling around with this and here and there, and a basic understanding of mathematical functions also is important. But playing with enough variables, you can create awesome animations. And this was a great example. So the same way that pixel art, all these constraints worked for me in art can also work in code in a way. So I can use these small elements and start composing my idea. So yeah, this is just a basic example. So yeah, coming back a little bit about the effort that for the assets. So I started with things with rather simple ideas, with silly stories still, but getting some small assets every day. Sometimes I draw an alien, sometimes I draw a flower with fire. I don't know, a guy that is punching something, or the logo for the presentation, and all these assets will get accumulated, and then it will be part of my own library of assets, and I will be able to tell stories with it. Textures, learning how to do tile sets. You can sometimes I got a very good advice from Lenny, for example, like don't do everything like by yourself. Like you can use tile sets. You just need 3 bricks and then just copy paste everything. You don't have to go to the whole screen and draw every brick by yourself. So sometimes you don't have to try harder, but to try smarter, in a smart way, in order to save time. So this was an example of, okay, I have an idea. For example, one day I came back from Tallinn, I say I have an idea, I want a game about mosquitoes, I want to, fight mosquitoes, and I tried to draw Tallinn. This was the first thing that I came up with. And I was like, the only thing that makes Tallinn this for me was this tower here. But it sucks, it looks horrible. But it was the base, no? It's like a placeholder for something great. That's what I said to myself. So it's a start and it's better than nothing. No? And my whole game idea is constrained to 64 by 64 pixels. And I kept working on that. And so I imagined, like, if you have an idea, just connect with the idea, draw it, have fun, appeal to that sense of humor, maybe to people's hate against mosquitoes. I mean, I haven't met anybody here that likes mosquitoes. Maybe entomologists or biologists, but yeah, everybody hates mosquitoes. So probably people start liking the idea. Hey, I want to punch mosquitoes. So that's also a good thing. Well, this can also be improved, yeah. But the problem here is like, maybe, okay, I wanted to improve this, but I think I exaggerated a little bit. This already goes out of scope with what I wanted to do, and it goes away also away from the style that I wanted to use. So yeah, it's a nice picture, but it's not what I was looking for. So maybe I have to go back a little bit and make it simpler. Yeah, just keep it simple. It's okay, this is nice, but no, that wasn't the original idea. And if I keep drifting like I always do, because I have focusing problems, then I will never finish anything. So coming back to the simple idea, redraw it and just stick with it, And maybe you can improve it later, but finish something first. So basically, this was like the game idea, like, it's just an arcade game. And so the guy is just, starts working through Tallinn and has to fight mosquitoes until he comes into the sewers of old city, and then fights a mutant mosquito, and then he wins. But that's the whole idea. There is no complicated story plot behind it. It's just an arcade game. It's in the making, but I hope now that I have more time free, I will be able to finish it. But yeah, so I minimize the amount of colors and I just try to bring this retro kind of feeling into the game. Yeah, and that was like one of the first moments where I say, hey, maybe this is starting to work. So it felt good. So the thing is, the basics, like I said before in the beginning, the basics are mostly still the same. What you need is a building process. Get to know some tools you can work with, choose them wisely, choose simplicity over name. Like if you already know, I don't know, paint.net, but you can do a lot with Photoshop. Trust me, it's like if you already know paint.net, just stick with it, because for example, if you're going to do 2D art or pixel art, it's like you really don't have too much places to go there. Like Photoshop is a great tool, but it might take you a long time to learn it if you are not if you don't have an artistic background. Know what can and what can't be done with them. Like knowing your tools, their capabilities, is very important in order to achieve something. And always remember that you can still work with small things and achieve great things. So yeah, so basically that's where I am right now. So thank you for listening. That's it. I made this small tribute. Okay. I don't know if you want to if you want to be tortured with this, but let's give it a try. Just fooling around. That's the 8-bit version of What is Love, and I don't know if you can still recognize Jim Carrey in the background, but. Hopefully at some moment I will also move into a little bit of sound, but I will not go out of the 8-bit kind of retro style, because I'm not a musician also. But if you know what notes to put, you can assemble small melodies, but that will be another talk maybe. So yeah, thank you guys. If you have any questions, I'm open here too.
So what are you going to do next?
What am I going to do next? I am definitely going to finish the Mosquito game. Yeah, try to release it, publish it somewhere, and maybe join the next Ludum there. Not sure if as a programmer, but maybe as a pixel artist. But keep doing this. I'm not doing this for a living at the moment, but it's still very fun. So I guess I will be trying to focus on a few projects and try to get them out, get people to play them. That's the idea. Probably also learn some music. I bought a small MIDI synthesizer there, so I'm trying to learn a bit about music, so I can start putting the music that sounds good with this. I don't know, but yeah. So yeah, so should I stop the stream? Yeah.
What tools are you currently using?
For cool. Tools for game development. Well, I have in my tool set I have three weapons. The first one is GameMaker, the second one is Unity, and I have the hardcore one, pure JavaScript. That's when I'm really inspired, and I want to do something very, very simple, because otherwise I will end up in a position where, but I need all these things that GameMaker already has, and redoing them in JavaScript is kind of weird. But yeah, basically. And for the graphics, I fell in love with Aseprite, and I'm still using it. I've been trying to move to Photoshop several times, but I always end up going back to Aseprite because the tools are more simpler for a person like me. So, I mean, Photoshop has an amazing amount of tools. You can do amazing things with it. But if you are constrained in a 64 by 64, I think even Paint works for doing this kind of animations. No, for doing the art. Animations is a different thing. For animations, it's more complicated. But yeah.
So when you're using JavaScript, do you use any specific libraries? Or?
I can show you, for example. I have an account in Twitter. If you want to get inspiration, Twitter is like it's a Twitter for JavaScript nerds that want to achieve visual animations into a hardcore level. For example, I can show you some of the things I have done. For example, let's just make a variation here. So you see that the pattern is already changing. So it's kind of a live thing working on. And if you look at the code of the page, they just have, a frame rate. They get a frame from the context, and just it's an infinite loop. So they just make you focus on the actual animation here. And yeah, and I am as alien, so I have some really cool experiments that I have done with it. Like, well, this is kind of trippy, so you might be hypnotized if you keep watching this. But basically, you can modify the code, and you can also do a lot of weird things. You can use even a little bit of functional programming and do a lot of weird stuff here. You see that there's people encouraging also, like, yeah. Some people also take the things that you do and do other stuff. I wanted to see. So for example, this guy took my animation and improved it. Let's see what he did. Oh, okay. So, okay. So, okay, yeah. So basically, he improved it in a way that you are like, damn it, how did he do that? Oh, here's the code. And you can understand what did he change, and it's in a this is 139 characters. So he even has one character to spare. So these are people that come from the demo scene. So they created this page, and they are like very active here, like putting stuff. So I have done some interesting stuff. Okay, this is like, I wanted some triangle rotating in the center, and this is what I came up with. So yeah, it's kind of looks interesting. But these kind of things can, if you think about this in terms of pixels, you can also make some cool effects, some particle effects with this. So I wanted also to get some skills to make some cool effects for my games. So I decided like Twitter is the right place, because here is like I will get focused on what is the code that I need to achieve this. There is some other examples. I'm basically just experimenting. There was a long discussion here. Yeah, sometimes I also do some glitching, for example. I got inspired. Like, I remember when I connected my Atari 2600 and weird things happened with TV screen, and I just wanted to modify pixels directly on the RGB coordinate, and then I just you just need to get an image data, and then you just modify it and construct an RGB that is like a four-dimensional coordinate there, if you include the transparency, and you just can start put that in a loop, add like a mathematical function. This is sine wave, and you get weird stuff like this. So this is how I spend my free time. I have no life. for example, if you wanted to do like something that is three-dimensional, you don't need like 3D Max or something. If you understand some basics of mathematics, you can do weird stuff like this. There is absolutely no 3D asset here. I'm just doing strokes, and I'm in a projected 3D to 2D canvas, and yeah, you have I don't know this. I don't know what it is. Looks like a fish to me, but so yeah, this is exploring more weird stuff, playing with colors a little bit, mathematical functions. What else I have? Some really 3D effect here, like there is this mathematical object and I am just rotating it in space. So yeah, just wanted to make like a serpent that starts emerging. So you can for example change the lines, the strokes. You can change it for assets, and there you go. You have a snake there, and it's you can say that it's a procedurally generated animation in that sense. But having clear where the pixels start and end, and then you can just play with it. And here this is for loop, for example. Yeah, so, and you can tell here how many frames is this taking, and probably you can improve it somehow. That's well, there is more stuff here, but yeah. I'm also doing faces. If somebody wants a face, just let me know. But okay, cool. Really happy to be able to share this with you guys. Thank you. So I will stop the streaming now. Bye-bye.